It's a really great day today. It's a great day for you, the graduates, for your parents, for family and friends who have come today, for the teachers who have shepherded you through to this point and probably see you leave with mixed emotions. I'm very privileged to be here today, but I'm going to let you in on a secret. I'm also a little nervous. Okay? You've probably given speeches before in class, and you know it can be a little unnerving to stand up and give a presentation. Now take a moment to imagine what it's like when you're asked to be the soloist. And you get there and you discover there are like 100 people on the stage behind you. And you know with certainty you're the least talented guy on the whole stage. Now, it isn't that I came without a plan. I have a plan. Okay, I have a plan. But anytime I give a presentation, when I start out, I feel a little nervous. I'm always worried that, well, maybe I'll make a mistake and do something that'll make me look foolish. Now, I will say this, I have an advantage over you in that regard, and that is that I'm old. I've done a lot of things already that made me look foolish. So I can remember back in third grade, the third grade field day, and based on unofficial PE competitions, I was widely regarded in the class as the third fastest boy in the third grade. Now, that meant that I hadn't had a statistics class, but I was pretty sure it was possible I was the third fastest third grade boy in the world. So there were Olympic dreams here. Now, Chip Tarkington was faster than I was, and Braxton Parr, I knew he was faster than I was, and Terry Haley was faster than I was, but she was a girl. And they had to run in their own race. And I'm going to tell you that I was not the only boy who was delighted to hear that. So anyway, I went into that race confident that within a few minutes I would be standing there on the podium and the principal would be draping that bronze medal around my neck. So the race is about to begin. You get the picture. Take your mark, go. I got a great start, all right? Just to picture me, the very embodiment of speed and power. Right? My arms and my legs pumping in perfect synchronicity. I was in the lead. I was running a great race for about 6 seconds. And then one of those things happened. I tripped and I fell. And all the other boys went rushing by and the dust flew up in my face. And I could look through the dust and see up there ahead some other boy winning the third place medal. Now, I wasn't really badly hurt, but I was kind of humiliated, and I cried. Now, a few years later, I was watching the 1972 Olympic 10,000 meter run with my father. It was tape delayed. Back in those days, you had to wait for it to come on the television at night. And there was a Tunisian runner named Mohamed Gammoudi. Now, he was one of the favorites. He had won the silver medal in Tokyo in 1964. He had won the bronze medal in 1968 in Mexico City, and he was having a very good year. So you can imagine all the cameras were on Gammoudi. And Gammoudi ran a good race. And he sort of held back in the back of the pack for the first 11 laps. And on the 12th lap, so he was going around the backstretch, on the 12th lap, he moved to the inside and began to pass another runner. And right at that moment, 3 runners ahead, a Finn tripped and fell. And Gammoudi was boxed in, and he didn't have anywhere else to go. And the next thing he knew, he was flying over that finish runner and slamming into the ground, not at the speed I had slammed into, but at Olympic speed. And he was bloodied and bruised and out of the race. Now, I think he probably cried, and I empathized, and I realized that my third grade fall really didn't measure up to Gammoudi's. I've had plenty of other stumbles and disappointments along the way, but some perspective always helped, and I haven't cried as often when I fell. But I wasn't invited here to tell you, to instruct you in how to fail gracefully. I came here to tell you how over time you and your school have impacted the community and the world in ways that you might never have realized or imagined. So let me read you a portion of a letter that Bob Luddy sent me. Uh-oh. Told you I was getting old. Dear Dr. Danielsen, you have a unique insight into the operations of Franklin Academy and the impact of good schools on communities. So I have a unique insight. The fact is, over a fairly long period of time, I've been studying you. Now, I haven't studied what you learned. Right? That's certainly important. But I'm an financial economics and real estate professor who writes esoteric articles. And I was interested in knowing how the school changed things outside the walls of the school. Not how it changed you, but how it changed the world outside the walls. How you changed the community. So I have here a journal, Real Estate Economics. And in this journal, I've written an article, co-authored an article entitled, "It Makes a Village, Residential Relocation Following Charter School Admission." I think it's going to make you famous. In this paper, we study how families moved after they enrolled children in Franklin Academy. And what we were interested in seeing was the degree to which the school might attract people over time and lead to greater growth and development in the area. So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I'm going to cut this speech a little shorter by showing you a picture. Now, the gray dots that you see are families that moved after they enrolled a child. The black dot that's sort of at the middle of the cluster is the Franklin Street location. It's really very amazing. So let's go back to the beginning. And then back to the end. Okay? What you see is that this school is literally attractive. People were attracted to be closer. Now, there have been a lot of studies that have been done about how people move relative to work. And what we know is people like to be closer to work. And so there's a statistical measure for attraction for that. None of those studies have found workplaces to be as strong an attractor as this school is. Your parents wanted you to attend this school, and once you got in, they made decisions that made your commutes easier. They shrunk their carbon footprints enormously. Those moves, for all those little dots over many years, probably reduced the total commuting time from school to home by over 1 million miles. Perhaps as importantly, while you were building a great community inside the walls of the school, without even trying, you and now other Luddy schools are building vibrant communities outside the walls. I've spoken to a number of community leaders since this paper first came out, when it was first in draft. Some have seen the paper, some have seen the video there, and they're very impressed. And let me read you a couple of the quotes. This is from someone in a relatively in a town here in North Carolina. He made the comment, "If we want people to move to our city, or even to stay when their children get to be 5 years old, we've got to bring in schools like that one." There's another from out of state. "Bob Luddy schools should probably be viewed as powerful tools for economic development." Now, you're about to commence a long journey, but you've already made a big difference in this town. what you and your families have done are now being seen all over the country by cities and communities that are interested in changing the character of the places where they live. It turns out schools like this are not only great for education, they're great for the places that they exist. Now, it took a dozen years, of data to do this study. But a dozen years, well, you've just finished it, and a dozen years in your lifetime really isn't very much. You're really only in the beginning laps of your individual race. I'm sure as you leave here, you go forth with a sense of excitement and maybe some nervousness and even perhaps a little fear. Well, let me reassure you, you have very little to fear. There was a time not long ago when if the crop didn't come in, people had a real fear that they might starve to death in the winter. When I was growing up, I went to a church, and every week we said the Lord's Prayer, and in there's a line, "Give us this day our daily bread." You see, just a few generations ago, people were very afraid about whether they'd have enough food to eat today. Well, now we have a much stronger social safety net, and the basics of life have become very inexpensive. Clean water, adequate calories. Clean water is so cheap, we literally flush it down the toilet. Adequate calories. A 50-pound bag of rice at Costco costs $22.43. Right? That's enough calories to feed an average man for between a month and a half. I checked the price before I came. Calories are so inexpensive that the poor in our country now are more likely to suffer from diabetes than from hunger as we've traditionally defined it. Diabetes is caused in part by consuming too many calories. So don't worry, you're going to have enough to eat, okay? And because this is the sort of thing that commencement speakers are supposed to do, giving advice, let me say to always drink 6 to 8 cups of that cheap, clean water every day, okay? Now here's another modern development. A professor who's on the floor below me, Dr. Richard Corey, is a professor of he heads our biosciences initiative at NC State. And he tells me that medical advances are happening so rapidly that many of you are likely to live to be more than 100 years old. And your grandchildren may very well live to be more than 150 years old. So it turns out that the race ahead for you is surprisingly, remarkably long. So let me summarize. The professors like to summarize, okay? Life is long, and you have nothing to fear. If you take your chances and you stumble or fall, you'll have second chances. You'll have opportunities to get back up again and get back in the race. Now, that's not what I did as a third grader. I sat there and I cried. But in the 1972 Olympic 10,000 meters, that's not how it played out. When Muhammad Gammoudi tumbled over that other runner and hit the ground and was battered and bruised and out of the race, and he was out of the race. But as he looked up, what he saw was the finish runner who got back up, got back on the track, and started down the track 30 yards behind the rest of the field. It turns out that runner, his name was Lasse Varon. Lasse Varon had caught a lucky break. Actually, he probably caught 3 lucky breaks. The first was he had a softer landing. He didn't tumble over another runner. So with that soft landing, he wasn't seriously injured. He was able to get back up. He was able to get a second chance. Turns out you caught a lucky break. You live in the United States of America, which is known as the land of second chances all over the world. People come here for the second chances that await you if you stumble. The second break that Varon caught was he was very well trained. It turns out that Finland was a powerhouse in the 10,000-meter run. Probably none of us remember that, but in the 1936 Olympics, Finland won the gold medal, the silver medal, and the bronze medal in the 10,000 meter. They swept the podium. Now, many of Varon's coaches had won medals themselves. So he had the benefit of being well trained. They were cross-training before we had a name for that. Now, you caught a lucky break. Franklin Academy does a remarkably good job of training you for the race that lies ahead. The third lucky break that he caught, and he probably didn't think of it as lucky at the time, but it turned out it was, and that was he had fallen in a race before. Turns out we do learn from our mistakes. So he was prepared when the biggest race of his life came, the Olympic 10,000 meter. He was prepared. He knew what to do. He knew that the race was long, like the race that's ahead of you, that the race was long. He had time to get back up and get back in the race. So Varon got up, got back into the race, and began to work to close that yawning gap. Now Finland is relatively close to Germany, and there were a lot of Finns in the stands. This was their big event, the 10,000 meters. So when Varon went down, when he fell, there was an audible groan. But as he got back up, there were cheers in the stands as he got back in. And as he began to work to close that gap, the cheers grew louder. And as he began to, after a long ways, as he began to approach the back of the pack, the cheers grew louder still, and the pain of the fall fell farther behind for him. And when he passed a runner, the cheers grew louder. And he began to feel that sense of euphoria that's known as the runner's high, where the pain disappears and the runner can drive forth fearlessly and joyously. And over a 2-mile stretch, he not only caught the field, he worked his way to the front of the field. Now it's a long race, and there was still a race to be run, and there was a lot of jostling. So he stayed in the lead until 2 laps from the finish. And then 2 laps from the finish, 2 runners who were with him began to pass him. And as they began to pass him, his foot caught the foot of another runner, and he tripped again. Now this time, he didn't fall. It just threw him off his stride, threw the other runner off his stride. But in the process, another runner passed. And now with less than 2 laps to go, he was back in 4th place. From 4th place, with 600 yards to go, he put the hammer down. Over the course of 100 meters, he passed the 3rd place runner, the 2nd place runner, the 1st place runner. And as he went into the final lap, he was in the lead. He led all around the final lap with 1/4 of a lap to go. A Belgian runner launched his final push and was pushing up beside him. And Lasse Varon, looking at the goal, pushing as hard as he could, desperately trying to reach that finish line before he was caught. Lasse Varon, who fell down in the 12th lap of the 1972 Olympic 10,000 meters, who got back up, who took the lead, who lost the lead. Lasse Varon, in a time of 27 minutes, 38.4 seconds, took the gold medal. He set an Olympic record. He set the world record. What a great story. The Olympic 10,000 meter run is a very, very short race compared to the race that lies ahead of you. You may not choose to run the 10,000 meters. You're going to get to choose your own race going forward. When you were in high school, you had to take 4 English classes and 3 math and some science, and you probably liked some of them, and some of them, not so much. All right, all of those together got worked into your grade point average. Your class rank is determined by your grade point average. But success in life isn't determined by any averages at all. You get to play to your strengths and to your passions from here on out. So find your passions and commit to them. You'll be much better if you're doing things you enjoy doing. A 40-hour workday can be a long day if you don't like what you do, but 50 hours actually kind of flies by if you're doing something you really enjoy. Live a life of passion. Surround yourself with other people who are passionate to run your race with. It turns out that over time, you will be more and more like the people you hang around. Pick passionate people. Run your race and run it with joy. The race is long. The road ahead is filled with opportunities. Don't be afraid to seize the opportunities when they come up. And if you make a mistake, and you will, if you stumble and you fall, you get back up and you get back in the race. Today you stand at the starting line in the race of a lifetime. Run it boldly. Run it fearlessly. Run it joyously. If from time to time, while you're running your race, you think you hear cheering, take a moment to look at the parents, family, teachers, friends who've cheered you on before you even reach the starting line. We will still be cheering you on every step of your race. So now, the time has come to take your mark. Go out and make your mark. Run hard. Good luck.